Coming this fall, the story of a grape who refuses to be crushed. One grape to rule them all, and one bottle to buy.
Whoa, honey, what are you doing?
I was recording an intro.
Okay, that's great, but we got a podcast to do.
Okay.
All right, well, this is We Know Texas Vino.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're excited to be here once again. Erica, that was a beautiful drive up here today. I took you on the back roads, didn't I?
It was absolutely gorgeous. A little bumpy, but my goodness, the scenery was
Guess what's happening
gorgeous.
outside right now?
Is
Raining?
water.
Is it raining?
There's this precipitation
Precipitation.
falling out of the sky.
Participation of water. Yeah, precipitating. Well, the roads through here, when I told you we wanted to move to Texas years ago, one of my things was just the big, open, beautiful, vast Texas community. Right?
Absolutely.
And so we're going through these roads, and we ended up here, Will, in Gunter, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Gunter.
Yeah, Gunter, Texas.
Never heard of Gunter, Texas
Yes.
till about 8 seconds ago, so that's pretty cool. But
There's so many places to find.
Yeah, so we're episode 34. Welcome back to We Know Texas Vino. We're super pumped, you guys, to have our listeners back. We have a great, vast, and Will, you just told me 19 countries now we've reached out to.
19 countries.
19. I was stuck on 12 for some reason, but that is incredible. So episode 34, our first 33 episodes have been a lot of fun. In fact, we just finished a couple episodes with the great Michael Cook.
Yes.
We really admire. We're glad to be able to track him down finally, and that's going to be a fun episode for people to listen to, and that's really fun. Where are we today, Will?
We are actually hanging out at Square Cloud Winery. We are with Jackson and Cheryl Anderson.
How can we not have the first question being, what is Square Cloud?
I mean, one of my questions is, I want to know how they came up with that name. I mean, it's always fascinating when you come to a winery and you want to find out how they came up with that name.
Right.
And
we're sitting here with Jackson now, who I have so many questions for this young man, because I can already tell he's going to be full of exciting answers. But Jackson, thank you for inviting us today, and your amazing partner, Cheryl. And what a nice facility you have here. It's just fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to say, like Michael did before, that I appreciate what you're doing for the wine industry. We've got to raise awareness of Texas wine. It's good stuff.
Well, we're excited. Yeah. And so we're here, and you just poured us a nice little glass of wine. Can you describe what we're tasting real quick?
Yes, that is Alicante Boucher with a little bit of Tannat. And if people don't know, Alicante Boucher is a tentager grape. It actually is one of those grapes that has red juice. Most red grapes have white juice, and the red winemakers, get their color from the skins.
Okay.
So 99.97% of red grapes have white juice. So we planted this. So another winemaker in Texas said, hey, we have problems getting red color in Texas red wines. We've never had that problem. We've always had good color, so we make this as a blend now.
That's nice.
Well, we just celebrated our 19th anniversary just recently, and one of the things I should know after 21 years together, is I should know what my wife likes when it comes to wine. And she just notified me. She goes, I love that earthy smell. Is that the Tannat in there by chance? What am I smelling there when I got that big breath of wine?
It's more the Alicante Boucher itself.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's really, really good. Well, we're excited to be here. We're having a good time at Square Cloud Winery.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. Thank you for opening your door up to this, not only just for your episode, but also for Michael. Michael had nothing but good things to say about y'all. He said y'all are the most hidden gem in Texas.
Ooh, big words.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Jackson.
I'll go by Michael, whatever you want to call him.
Michael's right here somewhere staring at me right now.
Table there.
Oh my gosh.
So let me tell you about Square Cloud and then a couple other things. So Square Cloud came from, we like being outside. And for a long time, we look at the sky, we look at things, and we wanted something that was evocative, not Chateau Anderson or Chateau this or that. We wanted something that if we ever got on a wine list, it would look, what's Square Cloud? We wanted something unique and graphical. If you look at our logo, we have a square cloud in the sky. And my customers, friends, have bought us taken pictures of square clouds around here. And if you look it up on the internet, you'll see it. But we wanted something that was really evocative and something different.
I love that.
That is interesting.
I love that.
It's always fascinating how people come up with their names for their wineries, and I mean, like for example, over at Arcade, it was a biblical word that they came out of, and it's just like when you figure out and hear the background of the name, it's just become more of a love for that winery.
Well, it reminds me of when Eric and I were up in Alaska for a few years. There was a comedy club there. They did everything with Spam. So people from around the world would have pictures of Spam in front of like the pyramids or in the Roma or whatever. So this is pretty cool.
Jackson, have you ever seen a cloud with a wine bottle being poured into a glass?
That's what we were talking about on the way.
We could
In the
probably
real world, or
We could probably Photoshop.
no, I have seen pictures. People have sent me pictures like that.
Oh, that's
Not
so
in the real
fun.
world.
Nice.
Well, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, let's go ahead and review a few things. Erica, I appreciate you being here running our technology day. So where can everyone find us, Erica Lynn?
Well, social media platforms everywhere. So you're familiar with Facebook and Instagram if you are in the 21st century.
Find our century.
We're going backwards. And then, of course, Will started our awesome website at WeKnowTexasVino.wine. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So
Stole
come
that from
visit
Jen,
us.
the wine thing. That was a pretty good idea
Yeah.
right there for sure. Yeah, and I'm going to tell people right now, don't be afraid to get on and give us a 5-star rating as well. But I look today and we have a 100%. I'd probably just jinx the hex out of it.
No, you didn't.
But you know
No,
what?
no,
It's
no,
pretty
no,
cool
no.
that people are pretty excited about what we're
No,
doing
we're going to
here.
speak it into
And we're
existence.
touching all
Always
corners,
5.
right? 19 countries all throughout Texas. We're super excited.
Yep.
So let's get into this. So we're at Square Cloud Winery, episode 34. We're with Jackson. And Jackson, boy, we're excited about this interview. And
Yes.
I hope that,
We've heard a lot of good things about you.
I'm going to start off with mad scientist. Yes,
Yes.
indeed. So
Yes.
our friend Mr. Cook over there, when he was describing you, said you're the mad scientist. And I asked you when I first met you, are you an engineer or you come from science? So tell us about yourself and why, pray tell, would a gentleman like Mr. Cook call you the mad scientist?
So I kind of got into it serendipitously. What I tell people, my parents were teetotalers. Didn't drink a lot of wine until college. Very little in college. I had to get my degree, and then I got introduced to it at a friend invited me to what I call a wine Tupperware party. A guy brought wines over, and we started drinking wine, and you had to buy 6 bottles at any time.
Okay.
And we just got into it. He started us off as the Coca-Cola generation, the sweet wines, and then gradually got us into the other wines, the drier wines. And my friend and I, we said, we can do that. We're engineers. We know how to do that. And we had no clue on how difficult it is, especially the growing. And I'll tell you a quick story. So my wife and I are from Virginia. We went to Virginia. The viticulturalist there said, Jackson, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm planting 10 acres of grapes for 10 years. I'm going to have 100 acres of grapes. And he had this smile on his face, which about 5 years later, I realized he was like, you're crazy. We still have 10 acres. We have 10 acres here. This is our third
That's actually
vineyard.
impressive.
And it's probably 3 to 4 weeks from rolling into chaos because my wife and I do most of everything here.
Okay.
And so if we're not here for 3 to 4 weeks, it could roll into chaos.
Right.
So we really, one of the things that hopefully will come across is we're very passionate about growing grapes. I mean, we're the whole story. We plant the grapes, we grow the grapes, we make the wine, we sell the wine, but we are very passionate about showcasing the fruit and the land of North Texas.
That's wonderful.
And most every wine that we have here is from either North Texas or I have bought some from Missouri, a friend I'm trying to show how to make grapes. But everything that you've had right now is North Texas wine from our vineyard.
Nice.
Fantastic. Well, I hate to say this, but I got some goosebumps actually when you were talking about it because I'm a very passionate fellow as well. And to hear your passion, it's so sincere. I'm very excited for you and your wife and your future. We're in a beautiful room right now, which you probably built as well, being an engineer. It's a wonderfully classy area here. And of course, my wife, Erica, you love the lighter colors as well, but it's extremely well done. And then your wines are spectacular. We've only been here my first time, Will.
Yeah, same here.
But it's just wonderful wines,
Yeah.
and the atmosphere is great. You've created a really nice culture of welcoming, and people are excited to be here. So congratulations, you've
Thank
done
you very
well
much.
so far, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We really want people to come and share the passion of how we make great Texas wine.
Jackson, have all of your 3 vineyards been in Texas?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a good question. So I started out when I got here. I had 56 vines in my house in Richardson. And then I met a gentleman who was going to the school at Grayson College, the T.V. Munson Viticulture and Enology Center. And he said, if you want to have an acre for 4 years, you can rent a bulldozer and knock these trees down. So we planted a vineyard there of an acre. And at the end of 4 years, we won best red and white in the state, non-commercial.
Oh, wow.
Seriously. And then
Really?
that's when my wife said, I guess you know what you're doing. And we bought the 25 acres here and started planting.
Nice.
Wow, that's exciting.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, of course.
Out of all of your experiments, the mad scientist, which is your favorite experiment you've put together so far?
Wine or just
Yes, wine. Definitely wine experiments.
The most, I would say right now, what that we're selling right now is what you're drinking, the Alicante Boucher.
That is
with
amazing.
Tanat. But the other one is our Tempera. And Tempera is a combination of Tempranillo and Syrah. And my wife came up with the name. We have it patented with the USPTO. starts off with the cherries of Tempranillo, rolls into the spicy black pepper of Syrah, wrapped in French oak. And we are going to field blend this year our Tempranillo and Syrah, but I've got Syrah and Tempranillo in tank now that we're going to make second generation Tempranillo.
So I need you to do me a favor. So what you just described, your Tempranillo and Syrah and how you described all that, I need you to change your voice to Barry White and then say, oh, yeah, why you say all that.
It sounded, well, he's
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Well, and he also,
We make great blends. Oh, yeah.
But Will, as he was describing that, who were you thinking of? You were thinking of me. Where he just described my life.
Well, I mean, it sounded kind of weird that I was thinking about you.
Yeah, you shouldn't be thinking about
All right,
that.
boys. Time to get back in
That
the
is so
game.
wonderful.
So I don't want to take too much time, but I want to tell you a
No,
story.
take all the
I wanna-
time. This is all
I wanna
about
tell
you.
you a story. So my wife and I are from Virginia, and we were eventually, or at one time, we're going to go to Virginia and grow because my parents had 30 acres, and we were going to build a vineyard there in South Central Virginia. So I was a member of the Virginia Wine Association, and I went there and I met a winemaker in Virginia, and she said, Jackson, another one of those clarifying moments. She said, Jackson, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm making varietals 100%, because you don't have to be 100% Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon to do that. And I said, I'm making 100%. That's all I'm going to do. And she leaned over to me and quietly said, why would you tell an artist to paint with one color? And I tell people a lot that story. I will always make 100% because I want people to, when you taste a Tempranillo, and I tell you it's Tempranillo, it's 100%.
Okay.
When it's Cab Franc, it's 100%. But blends are very nice. And the temper that we talked about, the ABT, are very nice. And we are starting to make more blends because I want to paint with more colors.
That's kind of fun. Okay, I'm with you. I'm understanding your madness.
I just, at that moment right there, I just had this whole
Will's getting emotional.
clarity moment right there. Because, I mean, you're right. Because there's multiple colors in this world. Why just paint with one?
Absolutely. And there's so many varieties, and how could you not look? And as you get more experience, and I have, and you look at it and go, I think those two grapes would go very well together. And when we talk about experiments, it's, okay, let's experiment with this. Let's see what I can do. And you talk about, we do a lot of experience. A lot of the winemakers around here, and other people call me the crazy winemaker on the hill.
Oh, they do.
And they talk about, what are we doing here? So we make wines from 5 gallons to 2,000 liters. And I'm experimenting in the back room. What can we do? How can we express the fruit? How can we do oak? And that also leads into, we don't use oak barrels. We use oak adjuncts or oak alternatives. We use oak on a rope, which is what they call it from the manufacturer. We use oak staves. We use balls. We use oak chips. We put all of that and use that. And we really want to use a judicious amount of oak because we're making fruit forward wines, but we are gradually, like with ABT or with their Cab Franc, we're adding more oak because people seem to want it, and we can accentuate the fruit with the oak.
So in addition to just being creative and just normally, I guess, just out of the box, you are listening to your customers as well. You're listening to North Texas. You're hearing that is what they want. And so you're adopting that as well when you start getting that thought process.
Absolutely.
Okay. How does that process work for you then? You hear something. I'm already starting to learn about you. I'm starting to figure out how you're wired.
So today, while you were doing the podcast, I was with the ABT and other wines. I was showing them with an oak ball. Would you like this with more or less oak? And in most people, I put an oak ball in the ABT and they go, wow, it's smooth. I like that a lot. So we've taken that with the Cab Franc. We released our first Cab Franc, and I did an experiment with customers here, club members, and they said they wanted more oak. So this generation, the second barrel of Cab Franc has more oak in it because people wanted that. And it's incredibly delicious. We're getting ready to release it in about 3 weeks.
Did I hear you right that you said you don't use oak barrels?
We do not use oak barrels.
But you add the oak balls.
We use oak adjuncts, like oak on a rope. It's segments that go into my tanks, oak balls or oak staves that go into the tank.
So I had noticed a couple of people around here had wine glasses that had what I thought looked like a cherry in it. And I'm like, oh, look, he puts cherry in his wine. So those are actually the oak balls that you was talking about.
Because I saw that as well. Oh, they're over there. We have some patrons over here. So that's what that is.
That's interesting.
And then your feedback from those people, you're like, okay, maybe that's good, bad, maybe more or less. And you're starting to really process that and start to build almost an agenda of what you want to accomplish.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's so cool. I think it's cool. And so they call you, I think I have mad scientists written down here. What do they call you? What do your colleagues around here call you?
The crazy winemaker on the hill.
Crazy.
Which one is?
I mean, he was so straight faced when he said that too.
Well, they may call you that, but I think I love Eric and I. We've been together a long time, but we love creativity and people who don't just fit into this one box. So for me to learn that, I'm very excited about trying more of your wines.
Well, also too, they just call me crazy. But so our property here, and Michael has talked to you a lot about terroir, and that we have got a lot of rock here, calcareous rock. So we have anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of topsoil, and then we go into fractured rock. So I was out here with a tiller tilling the soil, and they said, "What is that crazy guy doing tilling the rocks all day long?" And I was out here working on our vineyard, and so this property, some people call it like Languedoc in France or something. We're got a lot of calcium out here.
A lot of calcium. Okay.
And so our pH is very high.
Okay.
But what I found, and a lot of the things that Michael talked about, is just give me a challenge. We try to grow everything. We've got a little bit about our story. We have 10 acres here, over 9,000 vines, 47 varieties, some of those multiple clones. But we have 6 German varieties, and people say, "How can you grow German varieties here?" And we do grow Riesling, but we don't grow it, but it's grown in Texas. But there are ways to grow things if you want them to grow and you have the passion. You may not have the yields that you want, but you can grow it in Texas. I think we could grow anything as far as grapes in Texas.
Well, something that stuck out to me, you guys, a while back, we interviewed Michael Barton down in Fredericksburg. And he said, one of the things that stuck out to me when I interviewed him was he said chemistry is equally as important as the creativity. Would you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely.
Okay. And how does that work in your life? I mean, you and Cheryl are doing something special here, and I'm super excited to learn more even after this podcast. But how important is that to you? And do you actually wake up at night at 3 a.m. with a notepad and start writing down?
Pretty close.
Okay. I can tell.
Engineer.
I can tell you're not 5 seconds from cutting your ear off, but I do suspect you probably are writing down a lot of notes and doing your thing there. And so, how important is that chemistry to you as a wine producer?
It is where quality comes from. I mean, they talk about the wine is made in the vineyard, but if you don't know the chemistry and know where your wine's going, you've got to understand that.
Okay.
And there's a lot of changes going on in the industry too. There's a lot of things now that we can do to minimize sulfites, and there are things coming along that we can try to minimize, and we are minimizing sulfites. I make high pH wines, and generally they say don't make high pH wines because you need to drive the pH down. And I don't want to get into too much chemistry, but you have to drive the pH down to make the sulfites more active in the wine and make them more efficient in the wine. I don't like to do that. I don't like to drive the pH down. My wife likes a little bit more acidic wine. I don't like it. My pHs are higher. I like it more balanced, but we do other things. So they've got other microbiological controls now that we can use so we don't have to use as much sulfites.
Interesting. That is interesting. And going to school myself, I'm learning the difference between, having high pH and having high acids and high SO2s and all that. And I'm learning that. And it's when you start pulling the curtain behind and seeing what's behind the curtain and understanding more about the chemistry of making wine, it's just kind of like, oh, I get that now, why this wine tastes this way. I understand why they do this way to get this one flavor. I get it now. I understand it more clearly now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I didn't realize how big you were up here. How many vines do you have planted? 9,000 vines?
Over 9,000 vines.
That's amazing. And how long did that take you guys to? Because you said you and your wife are pretty much doing all of it. So what is? Give me perspective. Give our listeners perspective.
About 8 years.
How many years?
About 8 years to get everything fully planted out.
Okay.
But Michael may have said about it, and I'll tell you, it takes about 5 years to get a vine into production.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about I planted a red vine, for me, that won't go to the bottle for 9 years.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
So a white wine won't go to the bottle for 7 years. So it is a game of patience.
Yes, sir.
And when we plant, I guess the methodology of it is you don't really take a load on your vines until the 3rd year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can take 25%, then you can take 50 in the 4th and 100 in the 5th year. And the reason for that, and we've benefited from that greatly, is you're developing root structure under the soil. And so when our vines come out of dormancy in the springtime, they've got very good root structure, and they come out like the Energizer Bunny.
I bet they do.
And they start growing incredibly fast.
Well, it's such a mature approach. It's a responsible professional approach.
Yeah.
Making sure those things are in there good and not being too impatient. So, coming into this, Jackson, did you understand that it's a marathon? It's not some sort of a world-class 100-meter dash. This is a marathon.
I did not completely understand.
You did not.
But I want to tell you one other thing about, sorry to interrupt you, but so when we started planting, steel was very high there. We were going to use steel stakes and things like that. And then, many people were using CCA, and we did not want to use any type of CCA or any type of treated wood in the vineyard. And we wanted the rustic look. So I went with wood that wasn't treated, that comes out of South America, very hard, very durable.
What kind of wood?
You'd ask me. I don't
Sorry.
know.
Okay. I'm curious about that.
South American wood.
South American wood. I've
It's
actually.
the wood that comes from South America.
Oh, thank you for clarifying
That's
that.
a very good description.
Thank you. I am a
And actually,
speech
I had
language
the opportunity
pathologist.
this spring to go to South America and see those forests. I went there on a mission trip, but it's really, we're not deforesting. I hate people say, "Oh, well, Jackson's deforesting the rainforest," but our wood out here is very durable and it's not treated, and that's really what we want. I try to be very specific that I do not want to contaminate the soil. I want to be as natural as possible, what we plant and what we grow.
Well, then how frequently will you need to replace that? I mean, the simplistic part of me is like, okay, well, they're going to have to replace that more commonly than if you were having a treated wood or some sort of a different device.
So we're 18 years into the vineyard here, and we have replaced some posts, but most of it not because of that. We've had lightning strikes in the vineyard that have blown posts apart. And we've had some from windstorms that have cracked some posts. But in general, the posts are very durable.
Is that because it's naturally from wood that it holds up better here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, so are these wood that you're using? Is it in post that holding everything up, or is the wood that you're using is actually in between?
Very good question. It's the in post, it's the inline post, it's the stakes.
Wow.
We use it all.
Interesting. So I know that, from my studies and stuff like that impost is like critical for your whole trellis.
Exactly.
And so when you take that down and you have to let the vines down, I mean, I hate to say it that way. You're letting the vines down a little bit. I mean, you only have so long to get that pull back up. So once you start, you can't stop.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a silly question?
There are no silly questions here.
As the mad scientist, what kind of experiment has gone astray, or have you been severely surprised
she just took this
by?
conversation in a whole different direction.
So I would say, and I'm very blessed about this, very fortunate, that none of them have gone astray. Because even though I do the experiment, as an engineer, I'm controlling the experiment. Mm-hmm. I'm in control. So over the past, so I've been growing grapes and making wine for over 20 years now. And it's very, very important to learn that people learn from experience, from internships. And I really never had an internship, so you learn. But what you learn over all that years is, now, I know from this vintage where that wine is going. And so I've learned that as something tries to get off the rail, I might talk to Michael, I might talk to somebody else, I might read something. I put it back on the tracks really quickly. And so I don't let it go and spoil.
You don't let it go rogue?
No rogue wine.
No rogue. Well, it sounds very scientific. And in all the scientists I've met in my life, they always have this plan. I mean, they've cast a vision, but they have an actual plan. And being an engineer, all of our engineer friends, right? They have one friend and one redundant friend. But they're very specific. They're very exact in what they're doing. Would you classify that as kind of what you're doing here as well? There's no mistakes. I mean, you're an experimental kind of guy, but you know what you're doing behind the scenes. It's not like your brain is kind of hardwired to experiment, and yet it's very engineered. Right?
Yes.
Have you been surprised?
So let me talk to that.
So
So we had the possibility of mistakes, but we made those into
Blessings.
blessings.
success stories.
Oh,
So probably our first Tempranillo, we thought it was going to go south, and we've sold out of it now.
wow.
We thought it was going to go south. It was the one closest. My first Tempranillo was probably one of the closest that I was ready to dump.
Hmm.
And I was ready. But what I've learned, and from other winemakers too, is it's a living thing. The wine is living. And you work with it, and it'll work with you, and you can make it good. So Stratus, we called it our Pinot Noir. It was a very light, because when I first started out, we would press the heck out of grapes. We did not do Saignée, and I'll talk about that. We was like, let's make as much wine as we could. And then we started realizing, well, you need to do the Saignée. Most red wine makers do a Saignée and a malolactic. So Saignée from the French means to bleed off. So the grapes have white juice. So what you do is you take some of the white juice out at the beginning, and it increases the intensity. So you get more skin to juice contact. So almost all red wine makers, if they're making really premium wines, they're taking anywhere, maybe even 40% of that juice out at the beginning.
Wow.
And that increases it and makes those big, bold, thick wines because you've taken that juice out. And now you've got a high juice or skin to juice contact ratio. Oh. And then the next thing that most all red winemakers, they may not tell you, well, they probably will, but the malolactic. So you do an alcoholic fermentation, and then you do a malolactic fermentation. So you convert malic acid to lactic acid. I don't do that to whites, but you do it to reds because you don't want your reds to be crisp. You want them to be round because you want the green apple of malic to go away, and you want the lactic butter to roundness to come into the wine.
Wow.
That is interesting.
That was an aha moment for me, for sure. That was pretty cool. I love the way you described that. That was fantastic.
That's the one thing I love about doing this podcast is you never stop learning.
But also, we have been a little overwhelmed today. Not only did we do a double take with Mr. Cook, and now we're with this gentleman, as scientist. I am being overwhelmed with emotion and interesting facts. I'm not going to sleep tonight, baby. Sorry about that. But that is awesome. That is fantastic.
Can I ask another
I
question?
would love to. You just touch my leg. I know that means, this is my polite wife. How are you?
Well, so I heard Michael talk a lot about starting a vineyard, working with husband and wife, making sure that you're on the same page. How was that journey for you and Cheryl, and transitioning from what you were doing before to moving into this life of being a winemaker?
I would say Cheryl has been very supportive of the vision. And we are very aware that many couples have gotten divorced over this.
It's insane.
Cheryl has been very supportive, a great partner in developing this. And I was telling somebody else here, I had a vision of what this was going to look like. And I guess it was 10 years in, we went in the vineyard and I said, here it is, exactly what I envisioned.
That's really cool.
That's incredible.
So it's that manifesting thing. So.
It is. And I can tell it's emotional for you a little bit because to me, it's also emotional. It's just such a cool thing to see it come to fruition. I mean, a lot of hard work. I don't even want to get into the sweat and the frustrations and the ripped jeans and your sore fingers.
Ripped jeans are probably no big deal.
Yeah, maybe so. It takes a lot of hard work. And I think if I can say one thing, Jackson, if our listeners can understand one thing, this is not some sort of a hobby. This isn't collecting baseball cards. Okay. This is a real life adventure. And you have to dig in deep. You have to have both feet into the game for sure. But commitment, perseverance, grit, these adjectives that keep coming to me are just so important. And you obviously display that. And we haven't been able to talk to Cheryl too much, but I suspect she's right in the game as well. And so how awesome. But can you talk to our listeners about that? I mean, let's not give them some sort of false realization that they can just go out and do this. This is a decade plus, 20 years.
Well, and not only that, but the decision to go into it, and how did that come to fruition? You know?
Well, I think the fruition was that I won the awards for best red and white, and we had a passion. We wanted to make that. So then that's when we started building this. But I think I wanted to go back. Those are very good adjectives. I think that it is when people come and ask me, and I was talking to some people today, I say, don't do it. I mean, if they want to start a vineyard, don't do it. And if they really have a passion, they'll come back and say, well, I'd like to try, and then I'll help them. Okay. But when you talk about the long-term investment and the blood and sweat and everything else that it takes to make this, I tell people, it's not for the faint of heart.
No, sir.
And it takes money. What I put together, and it's a rough estimate, is $40,000 to get the vine, an acre to get the vines to the 5th year. And that's not including land. Right. And that's probably a low estimate. And some people say, well, I can do it cheaper. Okay. Well, you got a lot of labor costs in there too.
Right.
And that's not in land, but that's your vines. Your vines now are running $7 to $10 a vine, and you're planning on probably 700 vines. So you're starting off with $7,000 worth of vines.
Just right there.
Just to start.
Yeah.
And then you got 5 years of chemicals. You got 5 years of water or rain. You got all of that for 5 years to make the vines have really the first crop.
Yeah. Well, would you say then it's an adventure for not the weak-hearted and also not for the person who is too conservative with their pocketbook in terms of, I think I can. I mean, sure, Jackson can do it for $40,000. I can do it for $10,000. I think that's just a naive approach.
I think it is too. And I think, y'all heard the joke. How do you make a small fortune in the wine industry? You start with a large fortune.
Yeah, you got $2 million to make $1 million.
Exactly.
Well,
and I would say too, I'm sorry, that yes, if you really want to go do it, I'll help you go do it. But I'll tell you one other story. So the person I get my post from, I go up there and I look at his facility, and there's a beautiful vineyard, and I say, that's a great vineyard. Where is it? It's abandoned. This is a beautiful vineyard. It's abandoned. This is a vineyard. It's abandoned. And it was people who had a lot of money, doctors, lawyers, and they set their son or daughter up, and they decided after a year, Dad, this is not what I want to do.
Interesting.
So you got to be a farmer. You want to be outside. You want to be you have the perseverance. You want to be able to say, I can stick with this for at least 5 years, and that's just your first crop. Are you going to be around for 18 years?
Yahoo.
Well, Texas is large, and Michael said that there was 4,000 acres back in 2012, 2013 of vineyards, and now it's up to, I think, 9,000. Gosh, I mean, how much could we have here logistically, if you think about that, with all the people who've given up their vineyards because they haven't persevered through those tough times?
Well, let me go back and let me modify it slightly. We are different in that we are mostly manual. So if you've got a lot of money and you can go in and you can have the equipment, and Michael could talk about that. You can make it more automated, but we will probably 99.9%. We will always hand harvest. We will always hedge and leaf pull manually. So for a couple or partners that go in and say, well, I'm going to do this, and they say, I'm going to do it for $10,000. Okay, you're going to put a lot of labor in. If you've got lots of money and you can buy all the equipment, you can do that. You can automate many things in the automation process. Leaf pulling, you can pruning, all that can be done with machines.
Right.
We don't do that.
But is that a spiritual thing, though? Is that more of just like this great satisfaction, or you want to have that experience in your life where you have accomplished something significant? I was just typing in things as you were talking. Manual versus machinery. Is it a spiritual renaissance for you? Is it something that's happening?
There's some of that, but it's also money.
Okay, that's just it.
So you talk about, we're at the winery now. So in the winery, when you go in and you say, okay, I want to start a winery. Well, just about every piece of equipment is at least $6,000. So you say tank, this, that. So you start saying, well, I've just talked about $100,000 worth of equipment. Same thing out in the vineyard. Okay, I want a hedger. I want something to do the weeds. I want a really nice sprayer. They're more like $10,000 or $15,000 or more. So it's not like you can kind of do it on the cheap. You can cut some corners, but you got to be able to spray. You got to be able to cultivate the vines. So it takes money, but you got to have the money plus the passion.
But and harvesting, have done my first harvest this year. There's something about harvesting with not only just yourself, but with other people, including the winemaker and the vineyard manager and stuff like that. You get to harvest with other people. You get to talk to other people. You get to make relationships. Get to cut your finger off, I got
that photo.
You get to enjoy that kind of stuff. And it's, to me, I actually had a great time. I harvested, I think, 3 times this year, and I had all 3 times I made new relationships, talking to different people, getting an understanding of their background and why they were there harvesting grapes.
Absolutely. I think harvesting can be a team building experience.
How do you do that here? What Will and I and Erica have learned is that a lot of times volunteerism is extremely important. You have a community of people who are excited about what you're accomplishing here and come to volunteer. Do you hire? What does the staff look like?
It's a combination.
Okay.
But nice. I'm glad you brought that up. I do want to, for those people who have volunteered, we really appreciate that. And we've got some very serious, very dedicated, very important people who volunteer and help us out, especially during harvest. And this year was great. We had people who came out during the harvest when it was a brutal summer.
Jackson, are there some things you will not let people volunteer for?
Winemaking.
No, I would like for people to volunteer. I just, when I bring people out, I want them to wear be very clean. Well, sanitation, you know, talking about real estate, it's location, 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 and winemaking, it's sanitation, sanitation,
Yes.
sanitation.
I like
You
that.
cannot get that microbe
like that.
in that wine. You got to be very clean.
Yep.
But I wanted to say one other thing, and we can move on.
Please.
A lot of people wear gloves in the vineyard. I generally do not wear gloves in the vineyard.
Yeah.
Because
I
the
don't either.
spiritual part that you were talking
Yes,
about,
sir.
I want to touch the soil.
You
I
wanna
want to
touch
touch the plant.
Is that what it's about, though? Is it has that to do with other than you just want to be part of the earth? You
I want
be
to
part of that.
feel what's
Yes.
going on out there. I want to feel the vine. I want to feel the dirt. I want to feel the actual post.
Yeah, that's so cool. And kind of as I get to know you a little bit, I just got goosebumps again thinking about that. It's crazy, twice in one day. Holy Toledo. But that is really cool because I'm that way as well. You want to be part of that. And I'm an old athlete, and I apologize a little bit because I'm going to give you a bad story. But I was an old dirty catcher. And one of the things I loved about being a catcher is I was sweating and I was playing in the dirt. And there was something about that baseball experience. Well, same thing for you as an entrepreneur, but also a wine maker. Touching each grape and getting out there and doing that. With just our last podcast, Erica, we did up at Blue Ostrich. They were talking about they brought their entire staff down to touch the grapes and get so they can identify that and talk to their customers and clientele about that. Is that kind of what you're talking about as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's part of your soul.
And so you bring out, like, as you're looking at grape maturity, as it's getting ripe, so you can tell by the turgidness or how solid the grape is. And so as it starts to give away and it starts to get that softness in it, you can tell ripeness. So what we do, and I think many people now, a lot of people talk about bricks, and we used to harvest almost religiously on bricks. You know, when it got to 22, the whites were going. When it got to 24, the reds were going. But we now harvest on physiological maturity. And what does that mean? That means that we look at the seeds. When we harvest something, I do not want any green in the seed. I want those seeds to be coffee brown.
Yep.
I like that.
Like the grape is fully mature. And if I do, by some reason, in the crushing and destemming part or the pressing, I crack a green seed, you might get harsh tannins. I don't want harsh tannins. So we make sure our grapes, the seeds, are physiologically mature and they're coffee brown.
And Jackson, what do you mean by bricks? Because some of our listeners don't have that education behind them.
Sorry. So bricks is a measure of the dissolved solids in the juice. And what that means, most of it's glucose and fructose. So one brick is equal to 10 grams of that sugar content per liter. So when we talk about harvesting at 24 bricks, we're at 240 grams per liter of sugar, which is twice as sweet as a Coke or a Pepsi. So most people come out and say, "Are wine grapes sweet?" They're sweeter than table grapes. You come out here and you harvest, after a while, your hands are just really sticky because they are so sweet. And we actually had a grape come in once that was 30 bricks.
Whoa.
And that's 2.5 times as sweet as a Coke or a Pepsi.
Yeah.
It was machine harvested. It was a white, and they had let it go really hang a long time in the vineyard. And it was very sweet. And it stopped fermentation. It stopped at 30 grams per liter.
30 grams.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that would be a really
That's
good podcast,
insane.
actually, to talk more about that. I think it's the first time that someone's described it to that point where they wait until the perfect moment for that to harvest. That's such a cool thing.
Yeah, it's, I know a lot of the winemakers around here, they all want that perfect brick, 22 to 24, maybe 25. That's where it's perfect. Then you get that 12 to 13% alcohol in there. And that's like what I like to call the sweet spot, no pun intended there.
But what
But I
Jackson's
think
saying is you don't do that. You go more
Yeah.
by the actual.
by the
It's
seed.
physiological, I think you said was the word.
Right. Physiological maturity. So you're looking at the grape, and the bricks is the kind of the guidepost that I'm getting close. But now you start going through the vineyard, looking at the seeds, and I'll take guests out there and we'll look at it, and you'll start to taste the grapes.
Yep.
And it's like, well, it tastes sweet. Let's harvest. And as a viticulturalist, as somebody growing grapes, as soon as they go through veraison is when they change color, because they all start off like green marbles, and then they'll start to turn clear and golden for the whites and red. As soon as they almost got full color, you go, it's time to harvest. As the viticulturalist is like, I got to harvest. I've got to get these grapes in there. As a winemaker, I say, slow down. They are not ripe yet. They're not physiologically mature.
Do you have two conversations going in your head?
Yeah. I usually don't try not to talk back to myself.
Okay.
Well, to me, and I know we're blessed to have Michael Cook listening in the background as well. But to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, please, but it sounds like you're kind of capturing and rekindling and holding on to some old school techniques, which is to me beautiful. You're not going with the whole adventure. Let's get things done. Let's make it in bulk. Let's get there. You want a quality product, and you're waiting and patiently waiting, I should say, to make it your ideal wine.
I think you say that very well. We are very passionate about what we do, and we don't want to release wines before they're ready.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. We take reds, sometimes even beyond 4 years.
You said that.
We want to make sure that they're right.
Wow.
We want to make sure what pleases us is when you come in and you taste Alicante Boucher and you go, wow, that's incredible. Especially when people come in who've gone a lot to California and they come in and go, I didn't know you could make wine like this in Texas. Was it grown here? It's like, yes, it was grown right out there.
You see that vines when you drove in?
Yeah. There's something about that, though.
Do you use all your own grapes?
We consume all our grapes, but we have produced wine from other grapes.
Right.
I would say 96 to 97% of what we do is estate.
Wow.
And the reason we're doing some of it is because of the crazy winemaker.
Mhm.
Yes.
A gentleman came to me with Captivator, which is a Munson variety. Hopefully you get to taste it. Hopefully people can taste it. We may sell out of it because of this, but it was a grape hybridized by Thomas Volney Munson. And all during fermentation, it had the taste and nose of pineapple and cotton candy.
Wow.
And I did not add any of that to it.
That's something our daughter would love.
They start drinking wine.
Hold on. Wait a minute. You
She's
said
8.
it tastes like or smell like pineapple and cotton candy?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to need to try this now.
So I did not add anything. I mean, if it's okay, Cheryl can pour you some. You can taste it.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Mhm.
But those type of things is, how do you come up with those type of things and make, and I'm helping a friend who's growing grapes in Missouri, and I've made Cayuga White, and it's a different grape. It's an American variety. But I'm trying to both help and let people experiment with different types of grapes.
Fun.
But in general, we are Vitis vinifera, European grapes. I
Okay.
mean, that's the big thing
Interesting.
in Texas. We are Vitis vinifera. But it's also to explain, it's also to experiment with what can I do with a Munson variety? What can I do with a variety out of Missouri that was grown there? We also grow Wine King, and we are very hopeful that we'll eventually have Wine King. And Wine King is another variety that was hybridized by Thomas Volney Munson. And I really he thought it was going to make the best wine, a red wine, and that's why he called it Wine King. And we are trying to get ready, just the different seasons and everything that's happening. We have not been able to bring that to have 5 or 6 or 10 gallons of it.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Do you have a favorite type of wine yourself, or is it everything that you're working on is your newest favorite thing?
Well, my favorite right now is Alicante Boucher, the wine that you're tasting. I really like Tempera, and I really like Aleatico. So Aleatico, a lot of people confuse that with, I pronounce the G too much, but Aleatico. Aleatico is a grape from southern Italy, and it has the nose and taste of red roses. And it's a beautiful vine. It's a very upright habit. The alcohols can become very high. The Aleatico that we have now is 16%, but it is an incredible, because the grape, the nose and taste is of red roses.
Interesting.
Like
And
that.
A lot of people call it like a red muscat.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here. So you were in a really nice tasting room right now. Can you tell us about when this came to fruition? I mean, you built this. I mean, how long has this been here? And then in addition to that, do you have events here? Do you do things where you bring in locals or people from the Dallas-Fort Worth area and bring them in? So two-tiered question, but tell us about this and what's happening in the future with different events.
So we completed this in about 2008, and then the outer shell, and then it took us a few more years before we actually opened it, because I wanted to get everything right. I designed it. They told us in school, and we kind of decided, well, we thought it was big enough, but you need more space for dry storage. So I wish I had more space for empty glass. Always make more dry storage.
Okay.
We wish that this was a little bit bigger. I had dreams, and I'm running out of energy of building a bigger winery, because I've learned a lot. If I built a new winery, and if you're somebody thinking about building a new winery, I would build a red room and a white room,
Oh, interesting.
because they age at different temperatures.
Mhm.
So I would have a red room, a white room, and I would have a bottling room, and I would have space for that, because they age So back to your events. We've had a couple of weddings here. We've had bus tours. We'll get back to the passion about grapes. We are about not having an events, not having musicians. I mean, we've done it some. We're really about you and you and you coming here and enjoying the wine and me talking to them about it and sharing the passion of what we're doing.
Well, if I can just say this as a compliment to you and your wife, not one person walked in here while we've been doing the podcast today. This is our third, that you have not greeted at the door and built some sort of relationship with. I admire, and whether they were past customers or not, I have no idea.
Or waved when they went out.
Yeah. Yes. So I admire you for that because, just meeting you, you're, how do I describe you? You're fun. You're the kind of guy I want to be friends with for sure, but you're kind of like a little unpredictable. And yet here you are creating a really great culture here. And I admire you for that. It's something that's going to really benefit you in the years to come. So is that intentional?
Yes.
I mean, you're not just some sort of friendly guy.
That was an easy yes, no question.
But is that something you every day you have to wake up and say, okay, put on the smile, notify after working in the fields, you have to notify your face you're happy and get out there and just build relationships.
So the word I would use, and hopefully it comes across, is authentic.
Okay,
yes,
good.
absolutely.
You're the real deal.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, the first time I talked to you on the phone, I knew you were the real deal person because you could tell by some people's voice that they're authentic. You can also tell by their voice that they're trying to put a facade on to make other people happy. And you can do that, but eventually people will see through it.
Absolutely.
When you bring yourself and you have a composure of yourself, of being authentic and being honest with people, you usually 9 times out of 10, that's who you are.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about during a break at some point in time is your ability to visualize and bring things into fruition. How has that played? We talked a little bit about that with Square Cloud, but how important is that to you with your endeavors?
I think it's very important. I think it's for any person is to visualize what you want to achieve and not just visualize it in your mind. When you talk about manifestation, you want to write it down and you need to have a picture of it.
That's huge. That's
I
big.
had a really good friend who said he wanted to go to Iowa and have a farm, and he had a picture on his desk, and every morning he would come and look at that farm and say, that's the farm I want to have. So with us, when we started developing it, this is what we wanted to do. And we wanted to put ourselves into it and have a winery that expressed both the fruit in the land and what we could do here with our hard work.
So tell us about some of the struggles of going into being a winemaker, of growing your own grapes, opening up your own vineyard, and keeping that faith of the manifestation and visualization.
No, I would say the biggest thing is money. You're going to have the money. You're going to have resources to do it. And what they taught us in wine school is the best way to be successful is not to be in debt.
Okay.
If you go in and start taking out loans and you got to pay that loan every month, then that means you got to sell that much wine every month. And we are very lucky that we don't really have that overhead.
That's beautiful.
We can make wine that we really like, we think is great wine. And if the person doesn't show up this afternoon, that's okay. I'll sell it to the person tomorrow because we believe in the product. And now we have customers that say we make great wine.
Well, there's something about, Michael Cook was talking about the stresses of living in Texas, and he was talking about the geographical or the geological stresses and of course the soils, but there's also stresses to not being in debt, right? There's good stress, right? And so is that something you wake up and you're just blessed every day, just knowing you made the right decisions there? And if our listeners were going to follow the same course, is that one of the greatest lessons you would teach them, is really monitor that and live below your means?
I would say that's one of them. The other is be prepared.
Okay.
When I talk to people about getting ready to do a vineyard, they don't have the understanding. And I say, you got to be prepared. And in my first 2 vineyards, and even some on this one, you're ready to plant. When you get the bug to plant, you want to plant. And I would say if you find out in February or March, I'm like, oh, I want to plant. And you start planting in May. And I'd say, don't do it. Wait a year. You want that whole dug. You want your water infrastructure in place. You want everything, because that first year you want to be tending to that vine. You want to make sure there's no weeds around it. You want to train it instead of being out there trying to figure out how to get water to it. And I'll tell you a story. I like stories. Our second vineyard, we put it in place, and for a month, an acre vineyard, which is about 700 vines, I hand carried 5-gallon buckets of water to every vine.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Say that again for our listeners. That's amazing.
I took a 5-gallon bucket and took wine to over 700 vines.
Every day?
Because I was stupid enough to put a vineyard in without water in place.
Right.
You go, well, that's great, Jackson. No, it's not great. It's stupid.
Big shoulders after the day. I bet you were sore the day
one
after.
arm longer than the other. But I tell that story because I want people to understand when you want to plant, wait. Wait till the holes are dug. Wait till all your infrastructure's in place. Wait till your water's connected. Don't go. If you really want to plant 5 or 6 or 7 vines and see whether you can take them through a cycle.
Oh.
Our second vineyard, we didn't have water. It's like, are they going to live? Are they going to come to life? And they did. We saw little green leaves on them. And then you think you get it through the summer and everything goes dormant and it looks like it's dead.
Right.
And you're very happy in the following spring when everything comes back to life. It's like, I think I'm doing something right. And they're now coming back to life.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Cool.
That is awesome.
You kind of went through that this year because you
Yeah.
planted some in your backyard, Will, and just having you describe that almost daily to me was kind of cool. You went through that experience.
Yeah, I planted 12 vines in my backyard. I did 4 Tannat, 4 Mourvèdre, and 4 Grenache. And within 2 weeks, I had small clusters that I was having to clip off so I can get that root structure growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my trellis up, I got everything going, and then my 1-year-old Great Pyrenees decided she wanted to play tug of war with those. Yeah, and so she's chewed all my vines off, which is fine. I mean, it saves me the trouble of having to go out there and clip them myself later for retraining, for the second year. But I mean, my first time growing grapes, I'm a very much of a hands-on person.
It was your practice batch.
Yeah, it was my practice batch. I'm very much a hands-on. I learned by doing it. The same thing with my wine process right now. I got a batch right now of Tempranillo I'm growing Tempranillo that I'm actually making. I'm doing it by hand. I'm learning it by hand because that's the way I'm going to learn it. And once we figure that out, because obviously you're the exact same way. I could tell by the way you are. You're so much of a hands-on person. That's the way we learn. I mean, you just don't go out there and say, okay, I'm going to do this and expect everything to be 100% successful.
You can go do it, but it may not turn out well.
It might be 25% successful instead of, 75. So,
well, real quick, Jackson. So tell us about the physical location here. I mean, you're here, you obviously found this great location. You probably had Mr. Cook come out and test soils for you. I get all that. Maybe you did it yourself. I don't know. But you're here. Can you tell our listeners how to find you? I mean, we drove through some back roads today getting here, and that was intentional on our part. We wanted to see the territory.
Fun.
But how do people find you?
So most people find it by Google. We're 1023 Block Road, Gunner, Texas.
Too easy.
And it is.
Yeah.
We're not as challenging as some places.
Good.
We've been some places where, you drive down through dirt roads before you find it.
Sure.
Ours is pretty centrally located off Preston Road in southern Grayson County. So if you come up either 75 or Preston, you come up and get to Gunner and you'll find us on Block Road.
Well, it's funny. We were driving, we saw a house for sale. So how beautiful to buy that house. It was a beautiful home and walk to this winery down the
Or
road.
crawl.
That was like a
We
dream
joked
come
about
true
that.
for Eric and me. So.
Many of our neighbors say that.
Yeah,
They become club members and we cut holes through the fence so that they can drive their 4x4.
That is awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, you mentioned club members, so let's talk about your wine club real quick and tell us what you've created with that.
So thanks for asking about that. Our wine club is very open. No fee to join, no fees. It's pretty simple. You get to pick the wines you want. We don't generally have a single event in a month. We have a month where you can come pick it up. So we have a spring, summer, fall, winter pickup. We're actually now in our fall pickup, and it's all month of September. The whole philosophy that Cheryl and I have talked about is we want you to share in the passion. So we don't want to make a wine club onerous on people. We want it to be, you can come, you get 3 bottles of wine, you get 2 of this or that. Come pick what you like.
I like that.
And I can help you pick that, but come pick what you like.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the 3 bottles in the first level of the club. Those are the 3 bottles that you can take away that month, or the ones that you like. And we'll let club members taste it. And a lot of them are here. What do we taste here? What do you like? Let them taste. It's like, okay, I'll take 3 bottles of that.
That's
I always
great.
thought that was the best philosophy. All the wineries I've been to now, here in Texas and around the world, Eric and I've traveled through California, Washington, Oregon. I mean, we've been everywhere. But that's always a good philosophy, is let the people taste it and just and appreciate it, and then have the opportunity to take home what they want. And the ones that are out there that maybe listen to this podcast who force you to take the ones you don't want to have, that's probably the opposite of a winning formula in my book.
It's just a different philosophy.
Yeah.
Some people do that. We just think that you are the consumer, and it's very. I'm thinking whether I should tell the story.
Go for it.
I'm going to tell the story anyway. And my wife's probably going to roll her eyes.
Uh-oh.
For a long time, we did not charge for tastings because I thought it was unfair to charge for tasting.
Okay.
I have a product. If I believe in the product, I think you'll buy the product. After a while, and we had some incidents where people
Took advantage. And we talked about it long and hard, and we said, well, we can charge for tasting, but we always have the capability to waive it if we want to. Because we're the owners and we can waive it. So we do charge for tastings now. Yeah, I know.
Because we believe in our product, but we want people to taste it. And if we think you're honest about what you're authentic, I can waive a tasting.
Sure.
Sure.
But part of your soul, how many people have said this, Will, that we've talked to? You're part of your soul, part of your heart and soul are in these wines. It is who you are. And so to give that away and not be appreciated, I can see why there's some sort of value to charging. So I understand that, but you can waive it. And that's your proprietary obligation. It is something you get to do. You're the owner.
Great to be in business in America.
It is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, as we wrap this up, I suspect, and maybe I'll speak for Erica Lynn and for Will, you have a lot on your heart. You have a lot of things you want to share. What do you want to share with America? And what do you want to share with our listeners and the people that we connect with at a high level?
Not only America, but worldwide.
Like the Isle of Man.
I would say that we are very passionate about grapes.
Okay.
And that in Texas, with the help of people like Michael and AgriLife and others, we can make some of the best wine, if not better wine, than anybody else. It takes energy and effort and passion. But as you've tasted some of our wines, we can make really great wines here.
Yeah.
And we would love for people to come and judge us. Taste is very individual. So I have people who come in and they don't like our wines, but it's very few. It's just a style. They don't like dries or they don't like sweets. But honestly, there are going to be some people who don't like your wines. But if you look at our reviews, most everybody likes our wine. The fruit forwardness, the level of oak that we do with it. And they like our story and Cheryl and I always like this too. When you say, oh, here's Riesling or whatever. Where'd you grow that? Oh, it's those vines right there. So when they say, where's the Tempranillo? It's the vineyard right over there. It's the 5,000 vines over there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you feel extraordinarily satisfied doing something like that where you connect with it, let's say the three of us, and you're like, where'd that come from? And you walk us out there and let us smell the vineyard.
Absolutely.
There's something very satisfying about that.
Absolutely.
It's good old school stuff. For thousands of years, people have felt great satisfaction and probably on their deathbeds, they did something incredibly well. Doing something like that.
Yep.
So I hope that's very cool for you and your family and
awesome.
your generational, your legacy, what you're trying to accomplish here. So awesome. Anything else you want to share with us, my friend? We're so excited to meet you, and I'm
I
very
appreciate y'all
impressed.
doing this and getting invited, and I would love for people to come out. We love to share what we're doing with people.
Thank you for opening
thank
your tasting room as well. We were able to interview a gentleman earlier, Michael, and thanks for opening up your establishment for us to take care of that business as well. We're grateful for that.
Yes.
Quite welcome.
Awesome. Well, guys, what an awesome episode. And we're going to be back in a minute with a little educational portion.
Yep.
And then we'll talk about our sponsors as well. But for the time being, Jackson and your beautiful wife, Cheryl, thank you guys for everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Jeff Coe from TexasWineLover.com. We're here with Will, Michael, and Jen from We Know Texas Vino.
And this is Amy Nemec with the Texas Wine Lover mobile app. We're wrapping up the interview and moving into the wine education portion of the episode, so stick with us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We Know Texas Vino. Boy, we've had a great day, Will. It's been spectacular. Not only Mr. Michael Cook in the house, but also we have a great family here as well. And we're going to continue to interview this family. Jackson, with Cheryl just poured a bunch of wine for us. How cool is that?
I think she's
she
the
was
secret
the quiet
sauce.
assassin over the secret sauce. Yeah, she's probably the glue. But she's over here pouring wine for us.
Yeah.
We have tried some really good wines during the break.
Yes. So
super
real
excited.
quick, tell everybody what we're trying right now.
Is that the Captivator?
Yes.
It is the Captivator.
So Captivator was grown up near the Red River, Pottsboro, by Bob Gowan. It is a Munson variety. Very fortunate that I was able to ferment that. It is all during fermentation. It tasted of and smelled of pineapple and cotton candy.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
It's finished dry but it tastes sweet because of the aromatic components.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a very great grape. I would think if anybody was looking at a Munson variety, I would do Wine King and I would do Captivator.
Okay.
It's
Awesome.
just incredible.
So
it came
fantastic.
in like a Gewürztraminer, kind of pink. Didn't show up in the colors, but beautiful grape, big size grapes.
Yep. Beautiful. I like the color as well. Very golden, and I would definitely promote that at a dinner party and have some fun with that for sure.
Yep.
But we're in our educational portion of this podcast, and we're so blessed to be able to do this with an amazing scientist / engineer / madman, and we've really enjoyed the interview so far. And nothing actually. If I were to describe a true gentleman, you're actually a gentleman.
Yes.
And I appreciate that so much. Your wife's a sweetheart. So Education, Will, let's talk education real
Wow. Well, so our education today we want to hit on is the chemistry in wine. Now, doing it myself, we know that the chemistry can be a huge topic. I mean, anywhere from the acidity to the pH levels to your SO2s, everything like that. So kind of in a nutshell, in probably about 5-10 minutes, how can you describe the importance of chemistry when it comes to pulling the grapes from being crushed and pressed to fermentation to aging?
Wow.
Yeah, it is wow.
That's a
So chemistry is very important. You've got to have the tools. You've got to be able to measure pH. You've got to be able to measure sugar. You've got to measure SO2. You've got to stay on top of that and keep those measured. Those are the ones you've got to measure. A lot of people measure TA, and probably some people will call me a heretic. I don't measure much TA. I go by feel. So TA is your titratable acidity. It's how much acid. So you talk about pH, and then you talk about how much acid is actually in the wine. I don't do that. I do that by feels. When we finish our wines, I have my own lab, but when we finish our wines, we send it out to a TTB certified lab to make sure that everything is good stuff.
Okay.
But it's very important. And one thing I want to say as I go into this is what I was taught by other winemakers is the fact that you want to do your chemistry, any adjustments that you're going to do, you want to do them as early as possible. So there's a joke in the Texas wine industry that when you're getting ready to harvest Tempranillo, you know Tempranillo is going to be harvested because you see the bags of tartaric acid on the loading bed. Because tartaric acid, when Tempranillo comes in, generally it is very high pH, so you've got to make that adjustment. You got to do it gently and in small increments. So somebody would say, well, it's 4.7, well, I need to add, this many pounds. Well, if you're going to add 5 pounds, and I'm just making up a number, then you add 2 or 2.5. You always usually split what you think and calculate, and then you see how it adjusts. Now, more seasoned winemakers, they're going to go ahead and say, I know last year, every year I put in 4 pounds per ton, or whatever that number is, and they say, I'm going to go ahead and put in 4 pounds. But the thing is, it's hard to take that acid out once you put it in. And there are ways to do it. But what you want to do is, my whole point in that is do your adjustments as early as you can.
That's good advice.
With acid, with anything else that you're going to do. If you're going to have to do that, I generally don't like to do that. I like to let it make itself. And so with this year, with Air Tempranillo's last few years, we have not added any tartaric acid. But sometimes you do have to add it because the pH, the potassium pickup and all that, the chemistry of it, it just likes to have it. And you got to get that pH down. Like I said, I still make high pH wines, but I just don't like to put a lot of acid in there.
Okay.
But you got to, because it's going to help protect it and it's going to give it roundness. If you don't, somebody out there listening might say, well, what is it if I don't put a lot of acid in it? Well, if you don't, it's flabby. It's flabby. It's like lemonade. You get lemonade and it just has no acid.
Yeah.
Like
You
my
got a lot of
underarm.
Whoa. Yeah.
It's true.
Well, it took me 25 episodes. I've always understood chemistry, understood the value of it, and how but it took me 25 episodes for me to really appreciate that these folks who are making it really put some effort into that, don't they? They really utilize that.
Yeah.
So we're probably with a great example right now, right? I mean, it's absolutely obligatory.
And I appreciate that, but I know that there are out there that are a lot of winemakers in Texas, especially in Texas, that are really on top of the game as far as the chemistry. And nothing to them. It's, to me, more of an art.
Oh,
And it's become an art.
Sure.
that's cool.
And it's even more now that I'm 20 years into my career as a winemaker. It really is more of an art. It's
beautiful.
like, I know where the wine's going,
Mm-hmm.
and I know what I need to do to
Sure.
it, and we grow together.
You have your 10,000 hours, your hands in the dirt. You know what the feel is supposed to look like. It's innate in you.
Seasoned. He's a seasoned
Yep.
winemaker. So.
With, you just get to know it. You can have that experience. I know what the grapes are going to do.
Mhm.
I know where the wine's going.
You're probably making a lot of wine growers very jealous right now. Winemakers.
No, and I've learned a lot from many winemakers
Sure.
and from viticulturalists. It is a team effort here
Sure.
in Texas, and I think if it hasn't been covered before, somebody was saying the word I think you were using, how we can collaborate, especially with the local wineries, how we can collaborate and help each other grow this industry.
Yep.
And not to take anything away from it, I got a friend in Oklahoma, and I think he's going to do a great job there in growing the Oklahoma wine industry.
Sure.
There's a lot of room for great wine in Texas.
Mhm.
There's a lot of room.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
There
I know
is.
the topic is chemistry. You have another question about that, Will, at all?
No, I think you answered the question perfectly because, I mean, the chemistry is important, but it depends on how much of that chemistry you actually want to use when it make your wine. I mean, because, I mean, granted, tartaric acid, the pH, your SO2, all that right there can make or break your wine. I mean, you can either have a great wine or you got salad dressing.
Right. Yeah, I like the lemonade description. You had that lemonade that's just it's watery and it's soft and it's just nothing. And then
Yeah.
you have the one that is lemonade. It's a great
Yeah.
analogy. Wonderful
That
example.
balance of
Yes, sir.
sweetness and acid,
Yeah.
and flavors,
Yeah.
and you're doing that to make wine.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Well, you had mentioned another point there, and I don't want to get off topic because chemistry was kind of our educational purpose here. But you had mentioned just that collaboration as well. If there's a 2023 takeaway for me, with all these podcasts we've done, Will, isn't it this amazing camaraderie, this friendship, and this family? It's almost like this big giant family. And actually, Michael Cook's actually maybe the cherry on top. I mean, he has passion for helping and assisting and equipping for success and uplifting and doing all these sort of things.
Yep.
Is awesome. Then we have this family here. You can tell all they want to do is they want people to win. They want people to enjoy what they've accomplished here.
Yep.
So how exciting is that?
that is exciting. And I really commend on what you're doing here. I commend on what you're making here. And I commend the future that you're going through.
Anything else you want to commend?
No, but do you want to do
I commend this
takeaways?
empty glass because I know it's good.
Well, we're grateful for you. So real quick, we're going to do our takeaways. I want to just real quick touch on our sponsors real quick. And then, of course, I got some quotes. But let's do sponsors real quick. I want to talk about the Texas Wine Club. We're really grateful for those guys down there in Fredericksburg. I understand they're opening a tasting room here
Yes.
pretty soon as well. But hey,
Yep.
check those folks out. They are wonderful. They'll get you a little taste of Texas. And we're excited to have them there and for them to come up into North Texas and capitalize on
Yes.
good people in this community for sure. Texas Wine Lover app and, of course, their website, phenomenal. That's how we encourage our friends and family to go find great wineries
Yep.
around Texas. And I know that's wonderful. I'm sure you've had a little bit of access to those folks.
And then also, while you're looking at their website or their app, actually go check out their Facebook page also at Texas Wine Friends, because if you want questions about different wineries in the areas and stuff, or where to find a specific winery, I mean, obviously we're going to push you to the website or the app, but come and have questions because there's a lot of the winemakers that are on that Facebook page, and you can ask questions.
Yeah, that's a great call.
And I'm really excited about the flywithwine.com because I happen to be going to see my mom who lives in Vancouver, Washington. And we're going to go to the Columbia Valley, check out a couple of those amazing wineries that we always seem to hit. So guess what? I'll be bringing her some fabulous Texas
We should bring
wines.
some wines from this
We
fine
absolutely will.
Yeah.
And then I will be bringing back some awesome Washington, Oregonian wines as
That's
well.
right.
So they've got a great suitcase for those of you who don't know that you could, put 3 bottles of wine up to 12 bottles of wine and be able to travel with it safely and not have to worry about the shipping fees incurred with that.
Solving wine shipping problems and dilemmas is their tagline, right? Which
That's
is
the
pretty
best
cool.
tagline right there.
Awesome.
Or helping your mom get drunk.
That's funny. Well, we are here at Square Cloud Winery. We've had a great time with Jackson and Cheryl. We're very grateful for them opening this beautiful place
Yes.
for us all day. We've been here for several hours, and we're eternally grateful for that opportunity. Any last thoughts, Jackson, before we move on? I've got some profound statements here I need to share with you. You ready for it? The quotes of the week. But first of all, before I do that, your takeaway, Will.
My takeaway is, don't give up. I mean, Jackson here persevered. He did 3 vineyards and persevered. You can get overwhelmed, but you got to get over it really quick if you want to continue doing it.
Yeah. Rip the Band-Aid off and get after it, right?
Yep.
Good. Erica Lynn?
Well, you have big picture thinkers and you have very detail-oriented people. And I feel like we've met a dreamer who's an engineer, who's got a great wife standing behind him that's allowed you to create the experiments that work with this area. So thank you for sharing your time, your family, and your vision.
That's awesome. And my takeaway is real simple. That is, creativity never ceases to impress me. And I love people who have that little bit of spice in them. Obviously, Jackson, you are that person. You may be that stoic engineer type, but I've read into you. I've dug deep into who you are. You are extraordinarily creative, and I'm excited for your future. I can't wait to taste so many of your fine wines in the future. So thank you for being that creative man. That's pretty cool. This week's quotes are pretty simple. This is for your mom who's listening there real quick, Will. And it is, you look like I need wine. Okay, that is for her. And then the second one is, wine is the answer, but I can't remember the question. And the third one is a lot of fun as well. As long as we have wine, family holidays will be fine.
Yahoo.
Right, Yahoo. So anyway, we're blessed to be here, and thank you for everything today. And let's tag off here with just salute and have a great weekend, everybody. It's Labor Day weekend. You won't hear this for a couple weeks, but this is Michael.
This is Will.
This is Erica.
Salute.
Salute.